right, guys, today we're going to look at variables on one side with grouping. So, what do I mean by that? Well, you will see a problem that looks like this. Go ahead and get that written down. And as you look at that, what do you see on the left side of the equal sign? Because that should be something that we looked at in 7th grade, and this should be a little bit of a review for you. If you answered the distributive property, ding, 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 you are totally correct. So when we solve something like this, let's start writing some steps. Step 1, you are going to do the distributive property. And I like to write myself a little note as a reminder, sharing is caring. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you had me last year, you have heard me say this story before, so bear with me. When you guys were little kids, whether you went to Plano schools or totally different schools, when you were little and someone decided they were going to bring in a birthday treat, whether that was candy or cupcakes, what was the rule? Could you just give your treats to like your besties in the class, or did you have to give them to everybody? Chances are most schools that I've always heard of have said you have to give your treats to everyone in the class. Well, how does that play out with your distributive property? Your 2 has to distribute to everybody in the parentheses. So I'm going to draw those arrows. So first, 2 distributes to the A. What's 2 times A? Well, I'm going to smush them together. 2A. Sharing is caring, so now I need to distribute that 2 to the minus 12. I like to include the minus or the plus with that second term in your parentheses. So it's 2 times minus 12, well, minus 24. Now I'm just going to rewrite my equals negative 46. Well, sweet. By using the distributive property, we were able to rewrite it as an equation. So that's your second step. The distributive property is going to get you to rewrite as a 2-step equation. From here, guys, our next step, step 3, is we need to solve or isolate our variable. So really quickly, let's review how to do that. I like to draw my river down the equal sign to show where that balance is. And now here's your steps. In order to undo our subtraction, we need to do the opposite and add. And make sure to keep that balanced. We need to make sure we add on both sides. So these guys can cancel. And I like to bring down what's left, so I'm just going to bring down my 2A. Now, and you guys are more than welcome to use your calculators. Hopefully you have yours with you, just like I do. I plugged this into my calculator earlier. Negative 46 plus 24 should be negative 22. Again, notice in this video as well as all the other ones, it's so important to keep yourself organized while you are doing these steps. Now, I still have 2 attached to my A. In order to isolate the variable, I've got to undo that multiplication. So the inverse of multiplication is division. I'm doing that opposite. What you do to one side, you do on both sides. I can cancel out those 2's. A is isolated or by himself, and then negative 22 divided by 2 is negative 11. And that is our answer, guys. So again, we used the distributive property, we rewrote it as a 2-step, and then we solved or isolated for the variable. Let's take a look at the next one. or another one. What if we have a decimal outside? And not only did I include a decimal, I included a negative symbol. So make sure, guys, that we're reviewing our integer rules that you used from that you learned in 7th grade, and you also have a calculator, so make sure you use it to plug in those negatives. All right, step 1, let's do our distributive property. Sharing is caring, so I need to multiply my negative 0.6 to 4. When I do that, I get negative 2.4, because from 7th grade, I remember that a negative times a positive is negative. Or if you plug it in your calculator that way, and I'm just gonna do that really quickly. And remember, your negative button's right here. So negative 0.6 times 4, negative 2.4. Use the negative button on your calculator, guys. It's great. All right, so same thing, sharing is caring. What I do to the first one, I've got to do to that next one. So now I have to multiply is negative 0.6 times a negative w, or that minus w. If I remember before, guys, your multiplication smileys, a negative times a negative is a positive. That's like that sleeping smiley face. So now I'm going to write positive 0.6w. And then I need to bring down, oh gosh, we even forgot what it equaled. Let's say it equals 6.8. All right, so now we're gonna bring down that equals 6.8. So we did the distributive property. Now we need to we have already written it as a two-step equation. Now we need to solve or isolate the variable. So same thing, I like to draw that river down my equal sign. First thing we need to do is undo our addition or subtraction. Since I have a negative here, guys, it's important to make sure that we add on both sides. We're always trying to do the opposite. So these guys cancel. I like to bring down my variable. And now I need to do that addition here. I know that, and you guys could easily put this in your calculator. All right, so now I have 0.6w equals 9.2. W is not isolated yet. That's multiplication. My inverse or my opposite is division. What I do to one side, I do on the other. So I'm just gonna grab my calculator really quickly. 9.2 divided by 0.6. So our W equals, and for the sake of this, I'm just gonna round to the nearest tenth, 15.3. And that is my answer. All right, guys, let's look at one more example. You may also see where you have a problem that is like 6x minus 12 and a negative half. And that equals 21. All right, guys, well, here's the deal. Before, our number outside on the distributive property was to the left. Here we have it to the right side of the parentheses, and that's okay. It's not gonna make any difference. Step one, we're still gonna do our distributive property. So I'm gonna take this negative 1/2, sharing is caring, negative 1/2 times 6, and I could pop that in my calculator just to review, if you guys need to review fractions. I could do 1 ABC 2. Oh gosh, just kidding. Let's put our negative in there. Negative 1 ABC 2 times 6 gets me that negative 3. So use your ABC button, guys, and that again should be a review from 7th grade. All right, so I've shared once, and that's my negative 3x we need to get our next one in there. And again, I like to look at that as -1/2 times -12. I like to lump that subtraction symbol in there. I'm going to pull out my calculator again. So -1 ABC2 times -12. My calculator tells me it's 6, and that's a positive 6, so I'm going to write plus 6. And now I get to bring down that 21. So we did our first step, the distributive property. We did our second step, that we rewrote it as an equation. Third step, now we need to solve or isolate that variable. I see plus 6 on this side, so I need to do the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. These guys cancel, and I'm going to bring down my -3x. 21 minus 6 should be 18, but just for kicks, I want to double check in my calculator. Just kidding, it's 15. This is why your calculator is important. Even adults make mistakes. I know that this -3x is multiplication. The inverse is division. So I'm going to divide by -3 on both sides. Do not forget about your negatives. These three cancel. I'm left with x. He's by himself and isolated. And 15 divided by -3 is -5. All right, guys, now that you have notes, check your assignments and get into the assignment for this folder. See you guys.